What's going on, guys, and welcome to my video. In this video, I'm gonna focus mainly on validation, and only gonna be validating one input, which is gonna be a name. Now, I'm gonna be doing object-oriented programming here, and I will be using one file for the data definition class and then another file for the implementation class. So I have this file right here and it's clear, and I'm gonna start in my on my DDC, the data definition class, and I'm gonna name it public class. Okay, so I'm gonna name it validation, and I'm gonna put that bracket. We're gonna close it later on. Actually, I should close it now so I don't forget. Now, I'm not going to be doing any comments just because I want to kind of move through things a little quick. I don't want to make this video too long. So I'm going to be creating my variable, and I'm going to make it private because this allows the class to define and police data validity. This helps, it keeps the variable, it keeps it protected from accidental update. So I'm going to name this, it's going to be a string, and I'm going to name it name. Now we're going to create some constants, okay? And this is going to be used, these constants are going to be used for the validation for the name. So I'm going to put them private, public, sorry, because we can use them in different methods and and so on. So I'm going to make it public static. It's going to be static, so you're able to use it throughout different methods and even in the implementation class. And it's going to be final because it's a constant. So we're going to name the, well, this one would be the name length. I'm gonna do name length, and because a name can only be, up until a um, certain number of letters. So I will give it 10. So any name that's more than 10 letters will not be accepted, basically. Now let's think of different constants that we can do for name. We can have a minimum, so we'll do public static final int um, minimum length, and I'm gonna do 2 because nobody can only have one letter, but there's names that have 2 letters. Let's change this name actually to maximum length, and we'll keep it at 10. So we'll keep it at that. If we do think of anything else, we can always go to the top and add it. I'm gonna skip the constructors because Java already creates a default constructor for you. So I'm gonna go straight to my accessor, and the accessor is what you use. What the is basically a getter. So public and string get name, and then we're gonna return this name. Now we use this name because this refers to this one, okay? And we're gonna close that bracket. And since that's the only variable we only have one accessor. Now we go to our mutator, public void, because we're not going to be returning anything. And I'm going to name it, well, just set name. And then we're going to have our parameter, the name, the, the variable that we created. That's going to be in our parameter. Open bracket, close it up. Now we're going to set it here. So we're going to put this name, which refers to this one, equals name. And then we're going to validate for it. So I'm going to actually just do this. I'm going to be creating a method named validate name, and that's where I'm going to do my validation. So this method is going to be public void validate name, and it's also going to have that parameter because we're going to use the variable. Now see how validate name right here matches this one, because when we set our name, it's gonna set it, it's gonna validate. Actually, I'll actually want to put that first. So it's gonna validate the name, and then it's gonna set it. Now when it goes to this one, it's gonna jump and validate our name first before it sets it. If the validation is good, everything is clear, then it will set the name that we get from the input. Now with validating the name, we're gonna do different types of validation, making sure that the input is not empty, that it's only letters, no numbers or special characters or any sort. And then also we're gonna validate for the length. So those are three different validations. So to validate, first of all, that all um, each character is a letter, we're gonna let's do a variable here x, and we're gonna do x equals 0, and then we're gonna say while x, which we said right here, while x is less than name, the variable right here, dot length. Now dot length and parentheses, open bracket, close parentheses, open parentheses, close parentheses. This one gets the length of the input. So if the input, for example, is um, John, it will see the length, and the length is 4 because John has 4 characters. Now, while x is less than that name, then we're gonna go ahead and I'll have an open bracket, and I'm gonna close it first, and then inside here we're gonna say if, and this is saying that if character is not. So if character dot is letter. Now character, if we didn't have this right here, it would say if character dot is letter or dot is digit. We would say if dot is digit, but I'm gonna do it the other way because um, I feel like it just works better in terms of certain validation. So while character is not letter, while the character is not, this is not basically. So while the character is not letter, and we're gonna say name the character at x. Now since x is 0, it's gonna start at the very beginning of um, the person's name. So it's gonna start at 0, the index 0. While it is not a letter at character 0, let me make sure I closed up everything, so I have one more parentheses. We're gonna throw an exception, so it's gonna be new illegal argument exception, and we can write whatever we want in here, like error, your, or the input must be only letters. Okay, and then semicolon, close up the bracket that we opened right here, and then if it is, if they say the first one is a letter, if the first I'm sorry, if the first index 0 is a letter, then it's not gonna throw an exception. Else we're just gonna add x, increment x by 1, and then we're gonna close that else statement, and that will be it for that. Let me make sure, let me compile it. Oh, well, actually I made a mistake. I didn't even save it first. So we have to save this obviously first. So I'm gonna just save it in my where's my desktop? So I'm just gonna save it in my desktop. I'm gonna create a new folder, and I'm gonna name this folder. I can't name the folder. Oh, I can. I'm gonna name the folder validation, or let's better yet, let me name it um, name validation. Okay, and we are creating a folder because since we're gonna have two different file types, one for data definition class, one implementation, they should both be in the same folder. So we'll save that. Now I can, well, I already compiled, but let's compile it once again. And you can see at the bottom here, everything, operation complete, everything is good. Now we did the validation here for the input, making sure that it's only letters. Now we have to say, after that, after everything is done with the index, um, it goes through the first letter and then the second letter until the end of the name that the person inputs. Now we're gonna say if name is null, or name dot equals an empty string. or name dot length, or I'm sorry, name dot length is less than minimum length. Now remember, minimum length is what we our constant that we put at the top, and it's 2. So if it is less than the minimum length, or name dot length is greater than the maximum length, and maximum length is the other constant that we put here, which is 10. Now, if that's the case, if any of these, if it is null or an empty input, or the length is less than 2 or it's greater than 10, if it is, then we're gonna throw new illegal argument exception, and we're just gonna say here in the error, an error message saying error input cannot be blank and must be, I'm gonna add, must be um, greater than the minimum length. That's gonna show number 2, and less than maximum length. All right, and then we put a semicolon, and then I close that up. Now let's compile it, make sure everything is good. Everything is good. Now what are we gonna do next? Since we're done with our validation, our final method here in the data definition class will be a toString. Now this is just for viewing. So public string toString, and open bracket, I'm going to close it up, and I'm just going to make a variable here called report. It's going to be a string, just for my, because I will be making more videos with this program showing how to validate other things, and also maybe make this program do something. Now I'm just gonna say report, string report, and then I'm gonna put report equals name is equal, oh I'm sorry, plus this name, and I'm gonna put a semicolon to end that, and then I have to return report, and report is gonna return what's in the report. So this is gonna go into the report variable, and that's what we're gonna return. Now compile it. Everything is good, and we're done with our data definition class. Now we're going to create a new Java, and this one is going to be the implementation class. So with that implementation class, the first thing we want to do, and I'm going to be using JOption pane for inputs and for inputs and outputs. So I'm going to be using JOption pane. So I'm going to import javax.swing.joption pane. Okay, and then I'm gonna create my class, public class. I'm just gonna name it information, and then let's create our main method, public static void main string args. This is our main method. Now close that bracket up, close the main method, and I'm gonna close the class. Now first thing I want to do, and don't make the same mistake I made, is save it. First thing you want to do is save it in the same folder you save the other one, and make sure that the name matches your class name. It has to match it, word by word, and capitalization, everything has to be the same. Save it. Let me just run it. Everything is good. I mean, when I compiled it. Now in my main method, the only thing I'm going to do is create an object, and in this object is where I'm going to be storing basically the input. So my object name is going to be the name of my super class. Now this is a super class. The data definition class is a super class. So I'm going to make sure that the name matches it. Validation. So validation, and then I'm going to give this object a name. I'm just going to say info equals new validation. Okay, and that is my object that I created. Now everything is good. And that is it for my main method. I'm gonna jump into um, I'm gonna do two more methods. So this method is where we're gonna do to use to populate or to ask the user, populate the object asking the user for the input. So it's gonna be static, public static void. I'm just gonna name it populate, and then I'm gonna have to in my parameter I'm gonna put the object because I will need that to store the input. And then open bracket, close that up, and I'm gonna make a boolean, just call it valid. I'm gonna make the boolean false, and then I'm gonna do try, and I'm gonna do okay. So um, I'm gonna try asking the user for something. So I'm gonna try um, info dot set, and let's see where we actually, let me go back to my data definite class. We said set name. So this is where we're going to be setting it. So when I say set name, it's going to go and do this. It's going to validate for the name that we input, and then it's going to set it. Set name, and then we can ask the user right here with JOption pane dot show input dialog. And I'm going to say, please enter your name. Close that up, and then actually, and then I'm going to set the boolean to true. Now I am going to catch. So whenever you try, you have to catch. So while I'm trying this, you catch. So I'm catching for an exception. And the exception is if the name is not letter, if it is empty, or if it doesn't have the required length that it needs to be. So catch illegal arguments exception E, and then we're gonna use the option pane to show that exception. So show message dialog, and whenever you show message dialog, it has to in your parameters, in your after your parentheses, it has to be null, and then you can say e dot get message. Okay, and I think I closed everything up, my semicolon, and then I close that up. And all I have left now to close is my do. So whenever you use do while. So you do all of this while valid, while it's not true, basically. So while it is not true, we keep doing this. So this means that we're only going to keep asking the user over and over and over and over again until the user gets the input correct. Now, since I compiled it, everything compiled, let me run it and just show you guys how it is. Okay, so did I run it? What's going on? That's weird. I have no idea what's going on. I can't even run it. Huh. Well, let me keep going and see. Maybe I'll try to figure out as I'm going. The last method that I'm gonna do is gonna just print our input. So public static void print, and I'm also gonna put the object that I created. So validation info, and open bracket, close bracket, and I'm gonna put a variable called display, maybe string, and it's very simple. All I'm gonna do is say display equals info.get string, or no, I'm sorry, dot toString, because toString is right here. So that toString is gonna use this. Actually, I made a mistake here. So in the toString, it's supposed to be this dot get name, because when then it gets the name. that we set. So when we set something, we get the name. So this is supposed to be get name. That's my mistake. Let's go back to our implementation class. So info dot toString gets everything in that toString, which is the only the name. And then all we're gonna do is use JOption pane to show that input. And all I'm gonna write is display. And we are done here, I believe. Let me compile it. Everything is good. Now I have no idea why it does not run. I have no idea. So sometimes, guys, you make some mistakes and you just forget some things and you just blank out. And with programming, one small mistake and you're just like, what is going on? So what it is the fact that I did not mention my method in my main method. So I'm actually supposed to do that, or else it's just not gonna, this method is not gonna run. So I'm supposed to write the name of the method and then its parameter, and then now let me run it and make sure everything is good. Okay, excuse me. Now let me run it. Okay, so now it works because it creates my object, and then it goes, and then this method is thrown. So now it's asking me, please enter your name. Now let's just click OK without entering anything. See how the exception is thrown? It says error input cannot be blank and it must be greater than 2 or and less than 10. Now let's say we only put one letter. It's going to say the same thing. It has to be less than 2 or greater than 10. Let's put hello and put a number as well. It's going to say the input must only be letters because there was a number. Let's only put numbers. It's going to say the same thing. If we put a number that's greater than 10, it's also going to tell you. But now let's put an actual name, and we use John as an example. So when we put John, it's right. Now this method also was not thrown because I did not declare it in my main method. So I will have to do that as well. And the name of the method is print, and then its parameter is the object that I created. Now everything compiles, and now when we run it, I put the name John, and it's going to say name is John. So everything is working great, and validation for name is really simple. I just had to go in depth with, make sure you validate for the name properly, making sure that it's not blank if you have a minimum or maximum length, and then also the fact that it has to be only letters, unless there's somebody out there with an exotic name that has numbers. Maybe it's not their lucky time. So I really hope that helped, guys. If there's other videos you need me to make, and I will be making more videos, but if there's something specific you want me to make, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe, like, you can send me an email. And all right, thank you guys, and bye bye.